There is an arms race brewing between Switch emulation devs and Nintendo themselves, and in a strange way, it all centers around the Steam Deck. I may go as far as to say it's the Steam Deck's fault. Breath of the Wild emulation just got a lot better, especially on the Steam Deck as we approach the release of Tears of the Kingdom, and it seems that Nintendo is preparing for war. Let's talk about it in today's Deck News Roundup. What's good, Deck Gang? I'm back with your weekly dose of Steam Deck news, and if you're wondering why I took a short hiatus, make sure to stick around to the end. In the meantime, we're going to touch on a lot of things, with the two main stories being Steam Deck's wave of competition in 2023 and that arms race I was alluding to. As usual, let's start with the smaller stuff and work our way up to those big stories. Let's kick off the Deck News segment with an awesome deal from Humble Bundle. This is the best of Boomer Shooters bundle, and if you pay $18, you get 8 awesome Boomer Shooters. By the way, yes, the term Boomer Shooter is here to stay, and I'm here to tell you it's alright. I know a lot of people don't like it, and some people take it personally, as though they are being referred to as baby boomers, but I stand by the thinking that it is just clever wordplay. It's a fun way to call something old, and things go boom in classic shooters. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I can personally recommend Wrath Ain't of Ruin, Deadlink, and Nightmare Reaper. Nightmare Reaper in particular is a shooter roguelike with a lot of replayability. Those 3 games alone would cost you a total of $30 at their historically low prices, so getting those plus 5 more games at $18 is a steal. 7 of the games in the bundle have at least an 80% positive rating on Steam, and coincidentally, those same 7 games are playable on deck. Sorry Graven, I have an affiliate link if you want to support the channel, but whether you use my link or not, I think this bundle is well worth a look. Next up is Dolphin coming to Steam. This is exciting, but there could be a major problem. If you don't know, Dolphin is the GameCube and Wii emulator, and up until now, the easiest and best way to get Dolphin on your Steam Deck was to use EmuDeck. You may be wondering what's the big deal about the emulator coming to Steam, but there are a few benefits. In their hilarious April Fool's blog post, they appeared to confirm a few of those benefits. Most notably, they confirmed Steam Deck support, and once again, you can already install Dolphin on the Steam Deck through other means, but this would make it so you don't even have to go to desktop mode, which is nice and makes it even more accessible for all types of users. Second is Steam Cloud support. This is great, and it's going to allow you to transfer your saves easily between any different machines that you may have. It's not clear if Steam Cloud support will be for normal saves and or save states, and if you don't know what save states are, well, many emulators, including this one, allow you to save the exact state of your game regardless of the game's built-in save system. These are called save states. My current expectation is that Dolphin for Steam will have Steam Cloud support for both normal saves as well as save states. And the final benefit of Dolphin coming to Steam is Chivos. The blog post jokes about non-game achievements like playing with wireframe mode enabled for 2 hours and 16 minutes. That one's called See the Matrix, or even better is a Chivo called Use the Force Luke, which calls for beating Rogue Squadron 2 and 3 with the null video backend making it impossible to see what you're doing. But April Fool's jokes aside, they drop a hint at the end of the blog post that retro achievements may end up being integrated. This would allow you to unlock the community source achievements for retro games that never had achievements in the first place, and that would be sick. Still though, I think it's going to be hard for me to recommend Dolphin on Steam versus Dolphin via EmuDeck. The benefit of EmuDeck is that it configures everything for the Steam Deck right out of the box and lets you choose certain options beforehand, like whether or not you would like to enable widescreen hacks. Nonetheless, it's always great to have more choice, and I want to see this come to Steam soon. That is, of course, unless Valve somehow becomes incentivized to remove emulators from Steam the way that Microsoft locked down emulation on the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. Up until recently, you could play emulators on those consoles in a normal retail mode, but just a few days ago, Microsoft removed the ability and you are now forced to run emulators in developer mode. In a little bit of foreshadowing to our main topic, many outlets like The Verge are reporting that this may be due to pressure from Nintendo, and the timing does appear to line up, but there's a major problem with that story. It stems from an unverified conversation with a friend at Xbox QA team, and this alleged friend said that the primary reason for the ban is related to legal issues with Nintendo. That does indeed seem plausible, but given the unverified nature of the claim, I remain pretty skeptical. I'm not alone on that, because friend of the channel at MattGamer12 on Twitter said, quote, "It seems unlikely that this is due to Nintendo," end quote. He didn't say much more than that, but this is someone that is involved with bringing RetroArch to Xbox retail in the first place, and he was the first person I'm aware of to break this story. Dolphin will become the second major emulator to come to Steam, with RetroArch being the first, but I kind of have to wonder if this train gets forced to stop before it ever gets started, thanks to complications with either Nintendo or whatever else has caused Microsoft to pull the plug on emulators in retail mode. What do you think? And here are a couple quick stories to show how much reach the Steam Deck is getting early in its second year. First of all, there's a new report from an independent analyst named Omdia that says the Steam Deck will surpass 3 million units sold and should reach nearly 3.5 million units by the end of 2023. Their forecast calls for a 15% increase in sales from last year to this year, and they note that the Steam Deck helps Valve reduce its dependence on Windows, but they also address some weaknesses, like when they say, quote, "The unit has limited retail presence, reaching engaged Steam users only. Key titles such as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and FIFA 23 remain unsupported for reasons beyond Valve's control, such as bespoke anti-cheat solutions. Steam Deck is less approachable than other bespoke gaming devices in certain regards too," end quote. If you follow my channel, you know I agree with the point about retail and unsupported titles, but I do wonder which bespoke gaming devices they consider to be more approachable than the Steam Deck. That said, when it comes to unsupported titles, Boiling Steam is reporting that over 75 of the top 100 games on Steam are playable on deck as per Valve's own deck verified ratings. I don't normally look at verified or playable stats anymore, but this is a big one because it speaks to how compatible the overall Steam library is with the Steam Deck. Compatibility actually gets better as we talk about less popular games, so if the top 100 games have over 75% compatibility, then that means the rest of the Steam library is even more compatible, likely at over 80%, despite the majority of these games not being rated. That doesn't mean the verified system is without its problems. In fact, check Gardner Bryant's video linked in the description for a deep dive into the problems there. Likewise, the developer of the game The Pale Beyond reported that 10% of the people that purchased that game did so on the Steam Deck. I caught this on a video from Gaming on Linux, but yeah, I would call this a huge revelation for developers that are deciding how much effort to put towards the Steam Deck. It's possible that the Steam Deck can grow your reach by like 10% on PC, and even more than that as the Steam Deck gets more popular and sells more units. Finally, and this is more anecdotal, but my friend Moore found this tweet of a group of gamers playing Melty Blood in an Akihabara parking lot with nothing but their Steam Decks and fight sticks. Sounds like absolute chads living the dream to me. Speaking of living the dream, Live Alive was announced for Steam Deck, and in fact, not only was it announced, but it was confirmed as Steam Deck verified, and they're offering a 20% pre-order discount. Just like Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, this is going to be a perfect fit for Steam Deck when it releases later this month. A big update for this week is that Halo Master Chief Collection is now rated playable on deck. That's right, not just the campaign, but also the multiplayer modes that require easy anti-cheat are now playable on deck, as revealed by the Halo Twitter account. I'm really thankful to see this game get updated, and I think it's a huge W for Steam Deck and Microsoft. Also, Sega shadow dropped a new Sega game. This is The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a point-and-click visual novel with an obvious murder mystery theme, and best of all, it's free. It was released just hours before April 1st, so I thought for sure it was some sort of trick, but no, the game is real, it's free, and it's actually pretty good. Check it out. I guess we can't talk about new games on deck without addressing The Last of Us. Listen, I think we can all agree that Joel has been through a lot. He's been through the PS3, the PS4, the PS5, even real life. But last week, Joel took on a new challenge, the Steam Deck. By now, you've heard the nightmare stories about the PC port of The Last of Us Part 1. It's been the laughingstock of gaming Twitter, and it got review bombed to hell on Steam. The reviews currently sit at mixed, but they were well into the mostly negative territory on Steam for the first few days. This was all made worse by the anticipation that this game would play well on deck. Sadly, the game not only performed poorly on low-end hardware, but it performed poorly in general. I've got no doubt that Naughty Dog and Sony will eventually make this right, but it's still discouraging that a game like this, with this much cachet from a publisher with this much money, would launch in this state, rather than just be delayed. I hold Sony and Naughty Dog in much higher regard than this, and there's no reason to release the game in this state. The message being sent when they do this is that they're trying to get as much money as they can right now from the unwitting early adopters as they work on making the game reasonably playable. That's not cool, and they can do a lot better. On that note, Steam Deck HQ has reported that Naughty Dog will continue to bring games to PC, and I would say that's to be expected, but it's great to see that confirmation nonetheless. One more thing before we get to the main stories, I love a chance to spotlight something from the Steam Deck community, whether it's a video, accessory, or some new software. Today, I want to share this Reddit post from Pizza Sushi 85 on the Steam Deck subreddit, who is using one of those telescopic controllers usually used for phones to play the Steam Deck in vertical or tate mode. This controller here is the GameSir, which apparently has a USB-C connector, making it easy to plug into the Steam Deck. Also, the game that's being played is Gunbird 2, but as people discuss in that thread, there are a lot of use cases for vertical gaming. Ikaruga and Downwall both have vertical modes, not to mention a ton of shmups out there. DS and 3DS emulation is another good example. So yeah, this is pretty cool. By the way, big shout out to Steam Deck Life, who shared this on their Twitter, where I saw it. Alright, let's get to those bigger stories, and if you're finding this video helpful, hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more Steam Deck news. But first, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Basis. Are you a big nerd like me? Prove it by telling me you're as excited about this power combo tower from Basis as I am. It's a 65-watt 6-in-1 charging station that's perfect for your desktop thanks to the tower format. In addition to 3 AC outlets and 1 USB-A out, it also has 2 USB-C outs, but one of these is unlike anything I've ever seen. Watch this. Yep, it retracts. That keeps your desk space super clean when you're not using the USB-C while always having the cable handy. It's like the bionic commando of power strips. Unlike Brad Spencer though, it's much safer. It comes with 8 safety protections including surge protection, fire resistance, and over and under voltage protection. On top of that, it has the power button right on top so you can easily turn it on and off as needed. Best of all, this has a 12-month warranty, so you know that Basis stands by this product. I'm really enjoying this power combo, and Basis is offering a special on it for my channel, so check the link and instructions in the description. You come at the king, you best not miss. One of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite shows, and I even titled the previous video with that quote, and guess what? It's relevant once again. Another day means another x86 handheld to talk about, but it gets a lot deeper than that. Not that long ago, Ioneo teased their new Ioneo Slide, showing off the actual sliding screen and the keyboard underneath. And I can't lie, this is looking really slick. I'm a sucker for the old school Xbox 360 chat pad, and I'd love for something to bring back that feel. But no, I'm not here to talk about a new Ioneo or a new 1X player or GPD. I'm talking, of course, about the newly announced Asus ROG Ally and why we should maybe be taking it seriously despite one major issue. First of all, the chip in this is more powerful than the 6800U, but second of all, it's targeting a similar power envelope to the 6800U. The TDPs that Asus called out when they compared to the Steam Deck were 15 watts and 35 watts. 15 watts is the TDP at which the 6800U really begins to get going, and on the Ioneo 2, the 6800U can get as high as 33 watts. So we're right in the same ballpark in terms of power. This also seems to eliminate the possibility that the chip in this device is the Little Phoenix, which was rumored to be the next generation of the chip in the Steam Deck. Asus claims similar battery life as the Steam Deck, and I would expect that this means there's a 40 watt-hour battery, which gives approximately the same battery life at around 15 watts. Now, given that capacity, there are kind of significant downsides to also going with Windows and choosing a 1080p 120Hz display, but putting that to the side and also setting aside the lack of trackpads and potentially quirky gyro, I think there's evidence that more than any other PC handheld, Asus is really attempting to target the Steam Deck's audience with this one. The heaviest criticism from everyone when this was announced, including myself, was that this was going to be way too pricey, but there seems to be reason to believe that it won't be as bad as many of us are thinking. Now, there's no way they could ever get this as low as the 64GB Steam Deck. $399 is just out of the question, and we all know that. But there is a leak that says they're targeting $649 for the 512GB model to give it price parity with the 512GB model of the Steam Deck. And while that leak is unsubstantiated, I've heard from credible sources that the price could in fact be a realistic target for a device with a chip like this one. So while it may be hard to believe, I think we're going to see devices that outpower the Steam Deck but are as cheap as the Steam Deck as early as this year. But there's one major problem with the Asus ROG Ally, and that's that it may just be vaporware. That is one of the concerns from the Fox, who talked about this in a video on the Nerd Nest podcast on which we both appeared. Go check that out, by the way. Asus posted a legit Best Buy link where you can provide your email address to get more information on the Ally as early as possible, and the problem is that this is most likely just a way to measure interest. If not enough people are interested in this and not enough people sign up for that list, then what's the incentive to actually mass manufacture these? And the additional problem is, I have no idea how much interest is enough for Asus. So while all the marketing appears to be fascinating, and while I do think there's reason to believe this may end up being more power at the same price as the Steam Deck, that's only if it actually ends up existing, which at this point seems reasonable to question. By the way, one thing I said on that Nerd Nest podcast is that I would consider it a failure if this ends up on retail shelves before the Steam Deck is ever on retail shelves, and I stand by that. You have to remember that if this makes it to retail, that means Asus will have determined that the interest is really worth it. You could argue that it's not worth it for the Steam Deck, specifically since Valve are perfectly capable of distributing via Steam, but I think that limits who will actually buy the device. I think that the Steam Deck has proven its capability of being a mainstream device, and getting on retail shelves will make that much more of a reality. But more importantly, when normies try handheld gaming for the first time, I'd much rather it be with a Steam Deck than with a Windows handheld. But that's just me. What do you think? So I genuinely debated whether or not I wanted to make this video, or I guess this segment that I'm going to make about Nintendo. Nintendo has been on a warpath lately, and while I'm no stranger to poking that particular hornet's nest, I don't actually want my videos taken down. But on the other hand, there are some Steam Deck related things that we actually have to discuss, so I realized this is just something that I've got to cover, so let's talk about it. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is less than a month away from release, and there's one thing that's prevented us from being hopeful that it would play on the Steam Deck via emulation. I mean, if you've ever emulated the Switch version of Breath of the Wild on the Steam Deck, then you know just as well as I do that it's far from ideal. Or at least, it was. That's right, everything is changing with just weeks left to go. I've been hearing lots of chatter that the Yuzu devs have been working on some serious performance improvements and game-specific bugs that overall does an amazing job of improving Breath of the Wild emulation, especially on the Steam Deck. So I tried it out myself and it works surprisingly well in the latest early access builds of Yuzu. I'll save detailed comparisons for a standalone video, or maybe I'll make a cameo on another DeckTubers channel. The Deckverse has been planning on covering this in depth. I guess I just want to reduce the risk of this particular video being taken down, but suffice it to say, Breath of the Wild now plays quite well on Steam Deck via Yuzu. Most of the time, I got a frame rate equivalent to what you would get on the Switch, and many of the large game-specific graphical glitches are now gone. Other games benefit from these improvements too, so if you have a game you've been waiting for to improve, now might be the time to give it a shot. For example, Cruisin' Blast now works on the Steam Deck when it didn't work just not that long ago. I should note that I had to use Power Tools plugin to disable SMT, but even that is going to be no longer needed after SteamOS 3.5 is released, because that version of SteamOS fixes an SMT related bug and should make it so you no longer need Power Tools to improve emulation performance. Curiously, there's a good chance that SteamOS 3.5 will also release around the time of Tears of the Kingdom, and that once again puts Valve smack dab in the middle of this arms race, whether or not they intended to be. But if you thought that Nintendo was just going to let all of this slide, well, you got another thing coming. A lot of people have told me in the past that Nintendo doesn't care about the Steam Deck, but here's the thing, I think they do. Earlier in this video, I said that the Steam Deck is going to surpass 3.5 million units sold this year, and yeah, that sounds like peanuts compared to the Switch, but PC gaming and emulation has never been more accessible than it is for the Steam Deck. Nintendo has an uphill battle to climb when it comes to stopping people from emulating what is arguably their most anticipated game in years. So what are they going to do about it? Well, there are some sneaky things they might be doing, but first let's talk about the obvious things they are doing right this moment. As of now, they have been on the warpath when it comes to taking down videos and media that have anything to do with emulating Switch and especially Breath of the Wild. They've blocked extremely popular Breath of the Wild mod videos by YouTuber PointCrow, and while PointCrow has appealed these videos, those videos remain demonetized until this is resolved. There's also the story that I discussed earlier around Microsoft removing emulators from their store and an insider source allegedly pointing the finger at legal trouble with Nintendo. I do remain skeptical of that claim, but the fact that it sounds plausible is concerning. And then there's the matter of Switch DRM. A while back, Lenovo touted their new Switch DRM solution, which is aimed specifically at preventing emulation. We haven't seen any game developers bite, and so we don't know of any games that will be using this DRM solution, but the Fox has speculated that Tears of the Kingdom may be the first game with Switch DRM. I'm gonna link his video where he elaborates further because he goes into ways that Nintendo could intentionally slow down the progress that emulator developers will undoubtedly make in combating Switch DRM. The point I'm making is that DRM is a tool in the toolbox that Nintendo could absolutely pull out here, and I wouldn't put it past them to do so. Things are going to heat up over the next few months, and I'm not going to lie, I'd rather not break out the Switch just for Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm not talking about piracy, mind you. I am happy, absolutely ecstatic to pay for Tears of the Kingdom. It's still one of my most anticipated titles, but most of my gaming happens on the Steam Deck because it's convenient for me personally, and if I have a chance to play Tears on the Steam Deck, I'm going to do it. Okay, so if you were wondering why I didn't have a video last week, well, I've been looking for a new day job and I had a series of intense software development interviews. The reason I'm bringing this up is because a new job means I may have to slow down on putting out videos. I love the Steam Deck and this community, so I'll still be here. My goal is to keep up at least once weekly, but I'm also not going to hesitate to take a break when I need to for my own sanity. I know you guys all understand that. You guys are awesome, but I did want to be transparent in case you see any changes from me. As an aside, Nerdnest has launched a new Nerdnest podcast that's hosted by Bill himself and has so far included the Fox, Russ from Retro Game Core, and yours truly. We talk about games and gaming tech, and it's a lot of fun to do that podcast, so if you're up for it, join us weekly on Tuesdays. That gang out. Goodbye.